Chasing love in an empty bar. Pour a drink till I make it past. The midnight hour seems to come and go, but I know. Walk on up with a drink in hand, sipping mixes cause you can. And all the lights begin to switch on. You're chasing the night, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, holding on for holding on for life, feeding the high, chasing the night, chasing the night. Hotel rooms and city squares, champagne bottles, drum and snare. The sights and cities seem to fall away when you stay. Locked in love for a night or two, losing sleep just to get a few. Day to day you wanna stay out, you're chasing the night, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the night, chasing the night.
We're living for the moment now, we're one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. I want it, love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, no what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't be there. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what he say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yeah, it's what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like a chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to RCI TV. My name is Ryan Gale. I'll be your lead commentator for this evening, and joining me in the box for round 4 of the GT4 Championship is George Smith.
Indeed, it is, Ryan. Good to be here with you this evening and excited to kick off another GT4 round, this time at Spa, and of course, an iconic track in motorsport indeed.
Yeah, Spa, of course, being, well, one of the all-time greatest tracks in the world for a lot of people, and obviously myself included. I do have a lot of fondness for this circuit and the many iterations that it's had over the years, and I do have some disagreements with the current layout, but it is still one of the best tracks, not just in sim racing, but in the world for racing. So we're here for the 4th round of the GT4 Championship. Of course, we've had Monza, Paul Ricard, and Zandvoort. And now we come to Spa in Belgium, and, well, considering what we were having a few discussions off air, George, I believe that tonight's race is actually going to be taking place at 10 p.m. local time at Spa.
Indeed, so that should give us a cover of darkness, which means that these GT4s will be running under headlights, which should make things a little bit more interesting, of course. Just throwing another spanner in the works at these drivers in the splits, and I think that they've got all that it takes to handle them. Of course, free practice here taking place in the daytime, so this is not going to warm them up for what the race is going to take them on. So a bit of a roller coaster that they are going to have to prepare themselves for. Eau Rouge Radio, infamous corners for the race starts. Hopefully everything can get away cleanly this evening.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the big factors tonight, isn't it? How clean can everyone get away with that Eau Rouge Radion start? Of course, we've seen that in the GT3s, you know, over many races, it can be a bit difficult. And, of course, you know, one person has a little bit of an accident, it can just, you know, spiral out of control so quickly. But hopefully with these cars, it should be, well, it should be much better, and it should be a lot more manageable. We're currently looking at Tinker van der Velde at the moment as practice is coming towards its end. He's currently 6th fastest at the moment. He was our winner out at Monza for the very first round of the championship, but has struggled in the future rounds since. And, well, to see him up in 6th is pretty good. But leading the way at the top in practice at the moment, Joe McCauley in the Ginetta number 18, the lone Ginetta on the grid tonight. And, well, practice only tells half the story, George. Or sometimes not even half the story, but it's still good to see that car up there.
Yeah, McCauley has been doing wonders in his Ginetta indeed. Hasn't been able to turn the amazing pace that we always seem to see from it in quali and in the pre-practice sessions into any victories, really. And unfortunately for him, his race finishes have not been as good as his practice or qualifying sessions. So, I mean, he finds himself down the order in sort of 7th place on the championship for the moment. But, I mean, he's still well within it. He's got 94 points. The leader, Krzysztof Makowski, sitting on 131 points. So, you know, a couple of bad races going the way of the guys in front of him, and it could work in his favor. But always cool to see that Ginetta being pushed to its paces. And we are going over to qualifying now. So 15 minutes for these guys to set their lap. A man who was not with us last week and has recovered from his illness, has now recovered enough to join us today, which is, of course, Jardier in his number 39 Aston Martin. Always good for him to be back with us, and good to see him racing again, Ryan.
Yeah, Jardier not being available for the Zandvoort race was a massive shame. Of course, it was a big shame for him, and, you know, it was a big shame for us as well, because he always throws up such an entertaining race. You know, Jardier doesn't have boring races. He's just one of these guys that always seems to find himself in situations that many other people don't, and that's usually because he's at the front of the field. But yep, he'll be joining us here tonight. It's always good to see. We do have Wolf Matuszka here as well tonight. He wasn't present for Zandvoort either, and he was actually our winner out at Paul Ricard. So yeah, it's nice to see some of the names that were absent from the previous round here, and of course, well, qualifying going to be very, very interesting. And we are currently looking. We are currently looking at Michael Tauscher, yes.
Yeah, indeed, Ryan, and quite interesting here. I mean, Spa definitely a track where when you've got 15 minutes of quali, you want to get underway as quick as you can. Just look at the gap between, I believe it's Tauscher, and then behind him would be Tingo van der Velde. Just in terms of how much space they have to the rest of the pack. I mean, they've got... I normally use the term a couple of car lengths. They've got about 100 car lengths, the distance to the moon between them. So no pressure for the guys out at the front. Cannot say the same for the rest of the GT4s bundled behind. And of course, 15 minutes, we say it's a quick quali here at Spa where you've got those long lap times, especially in the slower GT4s. You really cannot have a bad quali, and you have to make sure that you get the most out of it. So going to be interesting to see what these times come out to be. We saw what qualified, or what practice offered us. And I'm very excited to see what the onboard footage from Michael Tauscher's Porsche is going to bring us when he does eventually come around to that line. Of course, he's just getting the tires up to temperature. These cars not starting with any tire warmers, Ryan.
No, they don't. They start on stone cold tires, but as Michael Tauscher rounds the chicane and finishes his outlap, he will be the first of the GT4 cars to start a flying lap here in qualifying. It's going to be a long one, so here we go, right on board as we come towards the first corner. La Source, the sharp hairpin here. Seen plenty of accidents in various different series over the years, but the Porsche is through there fairly nicely. Didn't go too wide either on the exit. Now a long run down towards Eau Rouge. And of course, this is where the GT4 cars are going to feel the pain after these two corners. So nice and flat through Eau Rouge, over the top of Radion as well, cuts the corner just enough to not invalidate the lap. And this is the Camel Straight. This is going to take a long time for this GT4 car to get to the end. You can see Lecombe at the end. You can just see the braking boards coming into view now. There's the 100 board. He'll be braking just around there and coming into Lecombe's. Then he'll go back towards the right. Now he comes into Melmedy. It's a very tight right-hander. Don't want to go too wide and keeps it well between the lines. Now he's coming towards Bruxelles. Tricky corner. It's downhill and very long, and especially in these cars, plenty of steering input you can see there from the likes of Michael Tauscher. Now we come onto the double gauche, and he's going to go not too wide on the first of those two corners. And then here we go now through Pouon. Very nice there. He's going to go wide, but not too wide to invalidate his lap. And of course, track limits around here will be tested in some of these cars of how much they can cut, some of the corners being kind of impervious to curbs, it seems. Into Lafagnes for the first time on his flying lap. He'll do fairly well through here indeed. Plenty of steering input on that car. Nice and wide. Doesn't go too wide though. And now he comes into Campus, and he will look to get a good exit through Stavelot. Nice and wide there. You've heard me say nice and wide plenty around this circuit. You have to use the track limits so much around here to get enough of an advantage. And now he comes onto the back straight, kind of, in a way, not really, and he'll come up towards Blanchimont, completely flat in a GT3 car. I would assume flat in a GT4 car as well. Doesn't need to go anywhere near as wide as the GT3 cars do. He'll come towards the bus stop chicane to round out the lap. Nice and late on there. What's his line like through the bus stop? Bit slow on the entry, but he'll get a very nice entry, nice and wide. And he'll come up towards the line. The first lap of the qualifying session, it's a 2:30.669, and that kind of resembles the laps we were seeing in practice already.
Indeed, it does. We have to, what feels like, wait for an eternity to see what Tingo van der Velde is going to do in his number 66 Mercedes. Not enough to take pole position, and he's going to settle for second. Jardier going to do a 2:31.386, get himself up to third, but will be dethroned by Lawrence with a 2:31.041. Mikowski, our current championship leader in that number 11 Alpine, is going to go and do a 2:32.157, so a little bit off the pace of what Tauscher managed to do in his Cayman. But of course, these GT4 cars are only really starting to warm up, but with 8 minutes left to go of quali, there's not too much time for them to get up to pace. So every lap does count. If anyone else goes and has a terrible lap when trying to contest this time, it will just keep the guys in front of them honest. Looking at Harry Conway in his AMG, he has yet to do the lap. He's coming to finish out at bus stop, will cross the line. Currently, everybody in front of him has just set a time, will set himself a time of 2:32.196, and that will be good enough for 11th.
So Michael Tauscher will still lead the way at the top of qualifying, that 1:30.6 not being challenged yet. Of course, Tinko van der Velde the closest to that lap time, and then that's closely followed by the likes of Marcus Lawrence and Martin Lawrence, the two Lawrences that we have here. And of course, there's plenty of discussion about them in the Zandvoort race. Jardier is currently 5th in the standings at the moment for qualifying. And like you said, George, championship leader down in 10th at the moment. Matt Samuel, who actually got pole position in the previous race at Zandvoort, he's 9th at the moment. We are currently looking at the lone Ginetta of Joe McCauley, who is still yet to set a fast lap. And of course, with a qualifying lap being about 2:30 around here, George, I mean, you know, you are going to be very, very limited in the amount of laps you can get in. This isn't like a Zolder or a Zandvoort where, you know, the lap time is significantly under 2 minutes. And, you know, and you can get quite a few laps in. Here, it's, you know, it's going to be a case of a maximum of 6 fast laps if you can carry enough fuel for that, or if you want to carry enough fuel for that.
I mean, it's all on that knife's edge all the time, permanently here. And in doing so, you might just throw one of those potential laps around. Marcus Lawrence from PCDC in that number 12, going to come up to some traffic, is not going to better his starting position, of course. Martin and Marcus Lawrence and Lawrence with completely different spellings, but the similar. Oh, look at that. Look who's gone pole. It will be Wolf Matuszka in his Audi. Will go and set to 2:30.117. So going to steal the show midway into qualifying in his dashingly pink Audi, and still going to continue out on track to see if he can better his lap time. I see McCauley is going to jump himself up to second on that podium, or on the starting totem on the left side at 2:30.384. Qualifying definitely not disappointing us as we predicted it not to do. Ryan, it's heating up. 5 minutes left to go. Do these guys have what it takes to better their times, or just hold on to their times at the very least?
That 2:29, it's looking possible, and I mean, if anyone can do it, Wolf Matuszka would be one of the best picks to do so. We're currently looking at the likes of Martin Lawrence, who has gone wide over Radion, and that will be the end of his qualifying lap. He'll pull over and return to the pit lane. Still got 5 minutes, but that does mean he's only got time to go out, do an out lap and a fast lap because of how long the pit lane is here at Spa. So yeah, Martin Lawrence putting himself in a bit of a tricky situation. He's currently 6th though, not too bad. But look at how quick Wolf Matuszka is though, 1:30.1. The top 6 covered by just under a second. Quite a few cars struggling around here, George, it seems.
You know, I think it's a combination of that qualifying pressure for these drivers to try and get themselves into that position for the start. Spa, of course, one of those tracks that does lend itself to some great overtaking opportunities. So it's not really the worst thing in the world, not starting right at the front. But, you know, racing drivers are racing drivers. Starting up the front's always going to be beneficial. You don't have to be a statistician to kind of work that out. But, you know, in these GT4s, we've seen just how close the racing is between them. We've seen how nicely they can follow between the corners with one another. The the sort of lack of aero doesn't seem to affect the air as much, which means the cars can drive a lot closer without becoming unstabilized. So yeah, it is a talking point, but qualifying here is going to be just the start of the story that we tell for Spa this evening. Looking at Quaid Claessens from ATK, a fellow South African, is going to be knocked down just a couple of positions there. Will hold on to 9th place as it stands. Does a 2:31.182 to get there.
Yeah, looking at Jardia now, 12th place for him at the moment. Maybe Jardia just not quite getting it together with this Aston Martin around Spa. I mean, looking at Chartier up at the top, he is the highest of the Aston Martins in 4th place. So you wouldn't necessarily say it's down to car BOP, although I have heard the Aston Martin isn't the greatest around here in the GT4 class. But Jardia, he's doing what Jardia does. He's 3/10 up at the moment, actually 4/10 up now, as he will come in towards the bus stop chicane. Will he gain any more time coming through here? He has gained time. He's gained 3/10 of a second through the chicane. He'll drop a 10th towards the line, but he will cross the line. He'll go 5th and, well, 6.5 tenths off the likes of Wolf Matuszka. It's a much better lap from Jardia, but still off the pace compared to where we'd expect him to be, George.
Tucks himself right up behind his fellow Aston Martin in the form of Chartier in that 819. Tauscher, who held on to pole position for a little bit, still holding onto the front end of the order. 3rd at the moment, but still out on track, looking to better his time if he can, and currently 2/10 up. So Michael Tauscher with a minute and, well, let's call it 2 minutes on the clock, will go through Puhan, and it will be one of those flying laps that will count. He potentially will fit another one in after this one too. That clock will tick down. If you're out on your lap before it ticks down, you will be able to, of course, finish it. So Tauscher wants to try and see if he can better his placement, get in front of the Ginetta of Macaulay, see if he can have a stab at Matuszka down towards the Kemmel Straits on the opening lap. And Michael Tauscher now in the number 16, very wide. That's going to have invalidated his lap time entirely. So with a minute and 20 on the clock, he's going to have to scoot to the line to fit another one in.
He is indeed, and Tinko van der Velde is a man on a mission. He's half a second up on his lap time at the moment. As it stands, that would put him second on the grid, but he's encountering traffic here. He's got a BMW ahead of him. It's the number 15 BMW. And as I look down the order, which car is that actually, in fact? The 15?
I don't see a 15 BMW on here at the moment.
Oh, it's 19, sorry. It's Googlia, all the way down in 28th, in fact. So it was Googlia that was ahead, and I think Tinko van der Velde has actually backed off from the lap. Yes, he has. He's going to back off, and he'll give it one last go. 35 seconds left on the clock as he'll cross the line. And he's going to give it one more good effort. But someone who is definitely up on their time and looking good is Joe Macaulay. He's 4/10 up on his lap at the moment, George.
You are not wrong, running a little bit wide towards the closing sectors of the track, but not as wide as we saw Tauscher come through here. Macaulay looking good enough to hold on to this 3/10 up just before he comes up to Blanchemont, and of course the bus stop chicane. We will see the notice at the top of our screens that the official qualifying has ended. If you haven't started a flying lap, that's your time set and done. Onto the brakes for Macaulay, finds an extra 10th coming onto or into the entry, loses the back just slightly, but not enough for it to upset his lap time. Does stay 4/10 up. Will it be enough to take pole position? Macaulay will be able to do so, and with Matuszka in the pits at the moment, that will be enough for him to secure it, unless Tauscher comes around with anything better. Ryan.
Marcus Lawrence crosses the line. 3rd best for him at the moment is the only thing that Mercedes can do. Tinko van der Velde is up by 5/10 of a second on his lap time at the moment. As it stands, that would put him 4th. But how much more time can the Mercedes driver, who dominated at Monza with a pole position and a win? He looked so comfortable around there. Can he do the same thing here? Can he put that beautiful black and gold 66 Mercedes onto the front row, onto pole position? More importantly, he's 7 tenths up on his lap at the moment. He's one of the last drivers out on track, setting a lap time. Wolf Matuszka in the pit lane, Joe McCauley in the pit lane, Marcus Lawrence in the pit lane, Michael Tauscher is on a lap, but he's not up by anything at the moment. He's breaking even on his lap time, so he's not going to go any faster by the looks of it. In fact, no, he does find a 10th. In fact, I'm looking at the 16 now of Michael Tauscher. He comes out of the bus stop chicane. He'll go up towards the line, and he won't improve on his lap time. He did lose that 10th, but now it's all on Tinko van der Velde. Half a second up.
Yeah, half a second up into the bus stop chicane. Finds an extra 10th as well through here. 6 tenths up. Don't think it's going to be enough to take McCauley off of pole, but certainly might rival Lawrence here for 3rd place. Doesn't quite do so there, and will start himself in 4th place. Does get himself up to 30.318, coming out as the official time on the circuit. But don't discard Samuel Ratz either, our last week's winner. Currently up in his lap time. He's starting 17th unless this lap time improves it, and it will get him up to 11th. So Samuel Ratz will be happy starting from there to be able to give the front of the order a battle indeed.
So qualifying is over. It is Joe McCauley in the Ginetta that will take pole position. A rather unlikely candidate, I would think, to take pole position, especially around here, but that is going to be absolutely incredible. So Joe McCauley takes pole, Wolf Matuszka on the front row alongside him. Marcus Lawrence and Tinko van der Velde will be on the 2nd row of the grid. Michael Tauscher, Kevin Chartier on the 3rd row. Jaroslav Honzik, Mikhail Sundström on the 4th row, and Alexander Borodai and Krzysztof Makowski round out the top 10.
A very quick session starts coming out there from the drivers, and it looks like McCauley going to lead us away. Quite a lot of cars getting, where they jumped into the pits. Maybe potentially something has gone wrong there on the service side. A little bug coming out, but that was a very quick start for these guys to get their cars readied up. I'm sure that our stewards will potentially just look at just restarting this session, I assume. I'm hoping. I mean, a lot of the drivers kick to the pits. I think it feels like that's what we need to do right now.
Yeah, I'm monitoring the steward chat at the moment. Okay, so we do have confirmation then. We will be having a server restart. A bit unusual, I have to say. We usually have about 5 minutes before the start of the race, so not entirely sure why. We got 30 seconds. We had a similar thing occur at the 6 Hour of Barcelona. I think it was George. Yeah, we will be having to get that quickly restarted, because I think a lot of drivers caught a bit off guard there, George.
Not wrong. You know, coming into things, if you are used to getting a little bit of a longer time to get your setup finalized, things like that do come incorrect. So guys, we will come back with you shortly. Let us get everything sorted on our end, and we will see you in just a few.
We're living for the moment now, we're one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. Love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah. I won't let up. It's It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, oh, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what he say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yeah, it's what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like you're chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, oh, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Know what I need, I know what I need. To find the keys,
Chasing love in an empty bar. Pour a drink till I make it past. The midnight hour seems to come and go, but I know. Walk on up with a drink in hand, sipping mixers cause you can. And all the lights begin to switch off. You're chasing the light, holding on for life. Holding on for life, feeding the high, chasing the night, chasing the night. Hotel rooms and city squares, champagne bottles, drum and snare. The sights and cities seem to fall away when you stay. Locked in love for a night or two, losing sleep just to get a few. Day to day you wanna stay out, you're chasing the light, holding on for life, fading out, chasing the light, chasing the night, chasing the night.
living for the moment now and one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. I want it, love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, no what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. Oh, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what to say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yeah, it's what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like you're chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, no what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. Oh, baby, just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe.
All right, guys. So we are back after a brief delay. We do apologise for that. It's just a slight error with the server files, but we are back, and well, we're going to have to do qualifying all over again. We had 15 minutes previously, but obviously now we're going to have to cut it down to 10 minutes, so we get to do qualifying all over again. Joe Macaulay will probably be kicking himself because managed to take pole position off of the likes of Wolf Matuszka right towards the end of the race. But, well, like I said, we got to go and do it all again. And, well, George, do you think Macaulay, you know, is he still going to be in the right mentality to go out and take pole, do you think?
I think maybe a little bit flustered. I think quite a few drivers maybe a little bit flustered out there. So potentially that's going to play into their minds. It will be the bigger man that gets out on top, though. And like we said, 10 minutes here with this long pit lane, it is going to be more of a super pole qualifying session as our race restart has occurred. Obviously, we couldn't go over due to those racing difficulties out on track, which means that everybody here gets another shot. That could change up the order once again for how things go underway. So don't discount out any driver now after seeing the results in the previous session, because anything could happen.
Yeah, and well, it's not the greatest situation ever, but of course it's, you know, you got to do what you can with the hand you've been dealt with, and of course all of these guys will try and make do with the best that they can. We can only hope that the qualifying results that we get from this session will be as close as possible to the ones that we just previously had. But of course, like I said, 5 minutes now being taken away from qualifying. It means that, of course, that's, you know, drastically reduced the amount of laps that these guys can do. And, you know, realistically, George, I mean, what are we looking at? 3 laps maximum, maybe?
perhaps if you can get a push and get a move on, you might be able to squeeze something like that in. Krzysztof Makowski might be the man to potentially get the maximum out. He was the first car out of the pit lane and is the first man out to do his warm-up lap coming through Blanchemont on his way towards the bus stop chicane. Means that he will shortly start his timed lap. And look at the time, I mean 7 minutes on the clock as our first car on the grid makes his way through the bus stop chicane, down the start finish straight and over the line to begin his timed lap for this, what I'm going to just call a super pole this evening.
Yeah, so almost super pole-like for this qualifying session. A few guys getting a bit caught up with each other. Obviously, because, you know, with the amount of time that they have now to go out and do a lap. But, of course, Krzysztof Makowski, he qualified 10th originally. How well can he do now? The championship leader will go over Radion and onto the Camel Straight for his first fast lap of this restarted qualifying session. And the Alpine looking very, very good. You can see Jaroslav Honzik and the likes of Billy Octane in the background there as well. But Makowski will come towards Lecom. And the Alpine has been kind of a surprise package, George, for the GT4s, hasn't it? You know, a lot of people expecting it to maybe not be such a great car. But, I mean, you know, Makowski's he's doing that car well at the moment, leading the championship.
I think I was a bit of a hater early on for the Alpine. Wasn't a massive fan of its initial looks, but I think that the likes of some of these professional drivers doing the Alpine some good have definitely earned it some points into my book. So good to see the Alpine out there. I will take back any of the negativity that I've said about it. It's possibly my favorite remote controlled size car out on circuit, and you know, I will give it another chance indeed.
Yeah, so Makowski coming around now, and my word, a lap in these GT4 cars, it takes so long. I mean, it's important to remember that a GT3 car can go around this track as about 216s, 217s we usually see for qualifying around here, in kind of conditions similar to this, where we have about 16 degrees air temp, 19 degrees track temperature. Should be very, very nice out there. Of course, 10 in the morning for qualifying at the moment, but you know, the GT3 is significantly quicker around here. And, and you'd think to yourself that, well, surely it doesn't make that much of a difference. I mean, it's, what is it, about 14, 13 seconds a lap? But, I mean, 14, 13 seconds a lap, you feel that, George, through these cars.
You know, you do. You're allowed to take a little bit more curb. They ride a little bit higher. Krzysztof Makowski going to come through bus stop here. We're going to see what time he manages to do. We'll cross the line with a invalidated lap, which means that Jardia is going to be our first time on the board. A 2:31.416 will be pole positions. Quade Claessen's going to get a valid lap in from ATK, going to do a 2:32, but going to get knocked down almost immediately by Marcus Lawrence and Mikael Sundstrom. A 1:31.548 coming through for Lawrence to take second place so far. Sundstrom doing a 2:32.637 to secure third place. And it's actually going to be knocked down there by Kevin Chartier with a 2:31.929. And Andreas Simon also going to get onto the board. Joe McCauley, our previous pole sitter, going to go into a 2:31.587. Not good enough for pole this time around. We'll start in third so far. 3 minutes left of quali. These guys pretty much have a lap to go.
Yeah, Jardia currently sitting provisional pole of the restarted session, just under 3.5 minutes remaining. Then it's a 2:31.4. Of course, we saw a 2:30.1. Actually, no, it was a 2:30.0 that was the pole position lap time set by the likes of Joe McCauley in the Ginetta for the original session. But of course, these guys not really able to rekindle those lap times in such a short space of time, especially when, you've had a bit of a cool down period since the original qualifying, and a lot of that kind of adrenaline and that will settle down a bit now. So you got to kind of work your way back into it, and of course, like we said, 5 minutes less on the clock to get yourself into the right mentality. But Jardia looking fairly good at the moment around his lap time. He's 4 tenths up, actually now dropping a tenth slightly. Marcus Lawrence just behind him in the standings for qualifying so far. Tinker van der Velde and the previous pole sitter, Joe McCauley, in 4th. And someone who has not really benefited too much from this restarted session right now is the likes of Krzysztof Makowski, down in 17th, but he is 1.9 seconds up on his lap time. And in fact, actually, as I look at it now, he doesn't actually have a lap time. Not an official one, sir. He did set an invalid lap on the previous one, so he'll come around the corner. He's just ahead of Jaroslav Honzik at the moment, but Krzysztof Makowski will cross the line. He'll go 5th. Of course, Jardier will cross the line, and he won't actually improve, George.
No, so potentially another invalidated lap showing up on the timing sheet there. Marcus Lawrence is up on his lap time, though. Will he go up? Wolf Matuszka going to go and take pole. Lawrence, that will be Marcus Lawrence from PCDC, going to slot himself into 2nd place there. 230.603 coming out from Matuszka. Lawrence doing a 231.299. 6 tenths off the pace of the Audi is the AMG, and of course Chartier here 8 tenths off Matuszka's time. 1 minute left on the clock. These guys are going to get this lap in and see if they can change things up in the order. Joe McCauley, of course, lap previous pole sitter, still sits in 3rd. Chartier looking like he's getting a little bit loose. We see that Makowski most certainly does, runs across the combs. And it will be Van der Velde to slot himself into 4th place on the grid, knocking Jardier down now to 5th place.
Yeah, so Jardier down to 5th. Tinker van der Velde is currently 4th, and Joe McCauley sitting 3rd at the moment. Wolf Matuszka, who is taking provisional pole right now, has actually pulled over on the side of the circuit just as Krzysztof Makowski. Actually, no, Makowski is still going around. That was Valentin Barrier that pulled off to the side. In fact, so Wolf Matuszka's done for the day. He's decided to call it quits. He thinks a 230.6 is going to be plenty for him today to bag himself that pole position on the restarted session. Mikael Sundström is 6 tenths of a second up at the moment. He currently sits 18th. Billy Octane is 1.2 seconds up on his lap time at the moment. But one of the guys to watch, Kevin Chartier, he's 9th right now. He's half a second up on his lap time. That would take him P5 just in front of Jardier.
Indeed, it will. Googlia also 5 tenths up on his time. Rats up the 10th, currently sitting in 13th place. So that might knock the KTM up a little bit. It goes 3 tenths up. Qualifying officially over here for the 2nd time this evening, which means that the cars on track here potentially still going to be able to set their time. Marcus Lawrence from PCDC up 3 tenths. McCauley up 4 tenths in his Ginetta. So potentially trying to get themselves a little bit closer. 2nd and 3rd might change up in terms of the order. It's not going to be enough to get close to the likes of Matuszka unless they can find a little bit more. Marcus Lawrence does. He's 7 tenths up now. He's coming in through the bus stop chicane. This could potentially be enough to take it off Matuszka on the final lap here of quali. Lawrence goes over the line, but it's not an invalid lap. Lawrence will, it's not invalid lap. Lawrence will just not have enough to do it. A 230.720, 10th of Matuszka comes out. Looked a little bit squiggly coming out of bus stop, but now Joe McCauley's turn to have a stab at things. He's 7 tenths up this time round. He's going to come down at the start, finish straight, 6 tenths up. Will he cross the line and improve his time? McCauley goes up, but not enough to get ahead of Matuszka or Lawrence. Slots himself and secures himself 3rd place, Ryan.
Yeah, so Joe McCauley unfortunately cannot rekindle the form that he saw previously and can't get pole position. He'll have to settle for 3rd best at the moment. Tinker van der Velde crosses the line. He doesn't improve on his lap time either. Jaroslav Honzik in the pit lane, as well as a few others as well. And to me, that looks like the end of qualifying. It will be Wolf Matuszka then that does take the official pole position with a 230.603. Obviously, about 6 tenths off what we saw in the original session, but of course restarted now. Marcus Lawrence will sit alongside him on the front row of the grid. Joe McCauley will have to partner Kevin Chartier on the 2nd row of the grid. Tinker van der Velde 5th, Michael Tauscher 6th, Jaroslav Honzik 7th. Sundström will maintain his original qualifying position of 8th. Ratz 9th, and Mikowski will also retain his original qualifying position of 10th.
So the top 10 there rounded up. Valentin Barrier starting in 11th place there. Martin Lawrence starts 12th. Alan Garland 13th. Matt Samuel 14th. Harry Conway will start 15th. Alexander Guglia in 16th place. Billy Octane 17th. 18th for Andy Boardman. 19th for Andreas Simon. 20th for Stephen Vust to round out the top 20 there. 21st for Alexander Baradai. Quade Claessens in 22nd. Dustin Vust in 23rd. Matthias Kopf in 24th. Jan Matthias in 25th place. Chris Heineke in 26th. Brock McDood in 27th. And 28th for William Stevenson.
So, officially on the grid then for the start. No more restarts. It is going to go through officially this time. We have the countdown timer at the top of the screen and just over 4 minutes until the start of the warm-up lap. We're a bit delayed here, but it will get underway. So, 10 p.m. start here, local time at Spa. You can actually see how lovely it does look around the track here right now with this, kind of dark look starting to descend on the circuit. Of course, we'll be finishing around 11 p.m. or just past 11 p.m. once the race is over. But George, I have to ask you now, as we have a bit of time to discuss. From what you've seen from 2 qualifying sessions, who's going to be your pick of the win today?
Oh, it's a tough call out at the front. I think that Wolf has most certainly impressed us in other seasons. Maybe not in the GT4s, but in the GT3s. Spa, the track that he's looked like he's had some pretty dominant qualifyings on, looks a little bit more dialed in to maybe get some consistency over the likes of McCordy in the Ginetta. So I think I will be that guy that picks the pole sitter, the number 25 of Wolf Matuszka. I know that this potentially comes with the Jesse Lee commentator's curse. I know that Wolf hates when Jesse Lee picks him, so I'm hoping that my South African vibes give him some good juju for the race ahead.
Okay, so with George Smith committing to the likes of Wolf Matuszka for a win here today, we are going to have a quick rundown through the grid just in case you did miss it. So Wolf Matuszka will line up on pole alongside Marcus Lawrence. Then it'll be Joe McCauley and Kevin Chartier on the second row of the grid. Tinko van der Velde, the winner from Monza, will start 5th with Michael Tauscher in the Cayman alongside him. Josef Honzik, absent from Zandvoort, he will start 7th. He has the Camaro of Mikhail Sundstrom alongside him. The winner at Zandvoort in fairly dominant fashion, the KTM of Samuel Ratz, will start 9th. And championship leader Krzysztof Mikowski is in the top 10. Valentin Barrier will also start in 11th place. I think he was just about there from the original session, and he'll have Martin Lawrence alongside him as well. Alan Garland and Matt Samuel will make up 13th and 14th. Harry Conway has the likes of Alexander Guglia alongside him. Conway's teammate, Billy Octane, just behind them in 17th. He's got Andy Boardman alongside him in the 69. And the 69 McLaren, in fact, the only McLaren on the grid, I believe, as well. Then we have the likes of Andreas Simon and Stephen Vust. They're going to be in 19th and 20th. Alexander Borodai and Quade Claessens, 21st and 22nd. Dustin Vust, Mattis Kopf, Jan Matthias, Chris Heineke, Brock McDood, and William Stephenson will round out the grid for 28 cars here tonight at Spa. So we're just over a minute away from the start of the formation lap. I'm going to have to say, George, you've put Wolf Matuszka down for a win. It's a very safe pick, and I'm not going to say it's the easy pick because there are no easy picks. But going very safe with Wolf Matuszka, if I can get his name out. But you know what? I'm gonna give it to the man that should have been on pole position from the original session. I think Joe McCauley. I think the Ginetta can can pull something a bit special out of the bag here tonight at Spa. It looked very good in qualifying. It looked good in practice as well. And, well, I'm just hoping that Joe McCauley can do that little car proud and he can bring home a good bag of points tonight. But we are 15 seconds from lights out for the formation lap.
So as the drivers begin they'll be able to switch on their headlights. Of course, it is a later race start this evening. It does seem to get a little bit later, darker, only a little bit later here at Spa. So not quite a dark start, but it will certainly progress. An hour of racing on track as Matuszka pulls away to lead us here on our single file formation lap. Of course, no tire warmers are available for the GT4 cars, so they sit on the grid with absolutely freezing cold tires all the time, and it doesn't matter when you ready up, you still got cold tires. So this formation lap is going to be critical in terms of generating some of that tire warmth, as well as getting the brakes up to temperature. So down Kemmel they will glide, and this will be the slowest that they will go, as of course Matuszka here setting out the pace for the drivers behind him. They're following some instructions to keep themselves in position.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you make on tyre warmers there, George, because it is, like we said, a 10 p.m. start, or past 10 p.m. start for the race officially. And as you can see in the top right corner, 10 degrees track temp. So getting heat into those tyres and the brakes going to be absolutely crucial around here on this formation lap. The benefit they do have is that it's the longest formation lap of the season. So, of course, they've got much more time to weave and brake and get all of the systems that they have up to temperature and up and running properly. But, of course, we do have one of the trickiest sequences of corners to start, to start a race for this season as well. Eau Rouge and Radion, it's going to be so tight. We've seen these cars go 3 wide at many occasions throughout the season. I get the feeling we're going to see it at some point here as well at Spa on the Campbell Straight, or on the back straight, possibly towards Blanchimont as well. But it's just going to be a question of how brave are people going to be on the start? Are people going to be diving for a move into Eau Rouge or Radion, well, Nova Radion, or are people going to take a much more reserved approach and maybe think about the long game?
I think the reserved approach is the choice that majority of our pro drivers are going to elect for today. Of course, with the live stewarding that takes place too, it is not something you want to get yourself involved in. You don't want to find yourself in the steward's box. You don't want to be under inquiry, because that can definitely put a wet paper bag over your race. So everybody here going to have that in mind. They also realize that these GT4s do allow for some closer racing. So Eau Rouge and Radion in lap 1, turn 1, with an hour of racing to go, not exactly critical to try and go 3 or 4 cars wide along the top of it. So let's only hope, I can only hope for a good race start here today, Rai.
Yeah, so as we are coming around now, you can see this formation lap taking over 3 minutes to complete because of how long the circuit is here at Spa. I mean, remember, at racing speed, these cars, they go about 2 minutes, or just over 2 minute 30 around this circuit. So, of course, on the formation lap, going much slower, you're looking at a 3 to 4 minute warm-up lap period. And Wolf Matuszka, he'll be hoping, of course, that everyone is going to be nice and bunched up. He won't want to be too far ahead of the pack to the point where he could get an infringement for being out of position on the grid. But they will start to line up in a 2x2 formation. You can see now as the pack starts to bunch up, everyone coming up back together. It's going to be very interesting to see how we get underway. Of course, this is not the starting line right here. Of course, this is where the lap officially starts for the timing, but this is not where the race start will occur. It will occur on the other side of the pit lane. or the start-finish straight rather, of course, using the endurance layout at Spa-Francorchamps, so they will go over the line here, but still plenty of time for a few of these guys at the front to get their tyres warmed, weaving about a bit. Don't want to get too out of position now, though. This is the crucial moment where you need to start holding your speed as they go round the first corner, and they will now be getting ready to go racing here. Marcus Lawrence, he's eager, and you can see it with the way he pulled in front of Wolf Matuszka there, but he is gonna... Well, Wolf Matuszka a bit less eager than the likes of Marcus Lawrence, but they will start to go side by side. The Aston Martin of Chartier a bit out of position on the grid, but assuming that that's where he's supposed to be, it is fine. We are green here at Spa-Francorchamps for the 4th round of the championship. It'll be side by side into turn 1. Wolf Matuszka will retain his pole position status at the front of the grid. And as we're looking further down now, it looks fairly clean through the first complex of corners as they run down towards Le Combs.
A very nice race start coming out. Matuszka and Lawrence having a nice little knife fight at the top. It's left Macaulay to hold down 3rd place for himself coming down into the order. It will be Chartier to come into 4th. It will be Van der Velde going side to side, I believe, with a car in the background. Not quite sure who that is. Oh, that will be Tauscher in the Porsche that's going alongside. So coming down into that Braxel's right-hander, of course, it favors the car on the inside line, and it will look like Van der Velde going to get out fine. It will be Tauscher then fighting with Jardier. Jardier in that Aston Martin going to slot in behind Van der Velde as we jump back to the likes of Marcus Lawrence from PCDC, under attack from Joe Macaulay in the number 19 Ginetta, and just behind them that 819 Aston Martin in 4th place is looking for a little gap. Look at these GT4s weaving out in the background, Ryan. A little bit deep there for Lawrence, going to open up the opportunity perhaps to the likes of Macaulay and Chartier behind.
Yeah, I had a look down the grid, George. Incredibly clean start. No one caught up in any incidents in the first sector. Very, very nice to see here, of course. And like you said, the Ginetta getting off to a good start at the moment on the back of the likes of Marcus Lawrence. Wolf Matuszka in the Audi just seeming to be able to pull away from here. But we're currently looking at the likes of Tinko van der Velde. We're on board with the back of the Mercedes. He's got Jardier right behind him in the 39 Aston Martin. Jardier looking interested here on the back of the Monza winning car. How late will Jardier go on the brakes? He'll go a bit later than Tinko van der Velde. He'll be on the outside for the first part of the bus stop chicane. He'll have the inside for the second part of the bus stop chicane. And he will be in front of the Mercedes as they come towards the line. A slight tap between the two, but nothing going there. Brilliant move.
Good respect coming out from the Mercedes there as well. Saw the move was on and gave adequate room for Jardier to get onto that inside line through the bus stop chicane. And of course, a position change coming out there. So the number 39 Aston Martin now moves up into 5th place. Up the front, still Matuszka building up a tiny bit of a gap there to the likes of Lawrence. 0.6 of a second as they come up towards the top of the Kemmel Straits. And just behind them, we've also got Macaulay still in this chase. Tinko van der Velde is now under a severe charge from the likes of the Cayman from Tauscher. Tauscher dives. It looks like he fakes to the inside, goes back to the outside as they come down into the sweeping right and then left-hand inside line for the Porsche. Looks like Van der Velde in the number 66 Merc going to lose another position here, and bleeding positions is that Mercedes. Michael Tauscher gets the move done and can start making progress towards the back end of the Aston Martin of Jardier in front.
Tinko van der Velde's race pace at the moment not quite switched on. And of course he is paying for it at the moment. 2 places lost on the start already here. And down to 7th place at the moment. But like you said, George, he's got to get himself focused. If not, he's going to be, well, prey to the car behind. In fact, it's Mikowski that's behind him at the moment. Mikowski started 10th on the grid. He's made up a couple of positions already. And in fact, it's the likes of Sundstrom that I've seen. He's well off from where he started. Started 8th, by the way, all the way down in 25th. So he has not had a good start to his race. He hasn't been in for his mandatory pit stop either, so something has definitely happened to him. Billy Octane far down the order, as well as Matt Samuel goes for a spin, and I think there was contact there, George.
A little bit. We'll be able to get a bit of a replay coming down. It does have the BMW on the inside. They are going, oh, it looked like the BMW ran onto a little bit of the curb, collected himself, touched the inside, and after they're both cars being passengers, Samuel doing a complete 360, getting himself back out on circuit as we switch over to Chartier here. Ryan, I'm keen to see some of these pit strategies that come out after a very clean opening lap. Not a lot of drivers needing to do anything in terms of the repairs to their cars, but because of them all being in this train, they're obviously losing time in trying to scuffle. And just look at this little scrap going down on track, as we see what could be that 3 or 4 wide situation coming down towards the top of Kemmel. It will be Jardier and Chartier to hold down positions through Eau Rouge and then make their way up to the top of Radio. Look at that driving coming out perfectly into the train formation, all tucking up behind one another as we see Jardier flashing his lights down the straight. Chartier here could potentially be on the loss to Tauscher. Tauscher round the outside will switch back to defend the inside line. The Cayman makes up a move, gets himself up to 5th place.
Yeah, so Chartier now on the back end of, well, the spectrum of going up and down the grid. And of course, now he has the likes of Tinker van der Velde, who he did get past earlier on, right behind him. And I don't think Chartier would have been expecting Tauscher to get past him from that slight mistake that he had coming out of the first corner. But it shows you how much speed you can lose. One slight mistake going wide at one corner here at Spa, it can affect you for so many more corners to come. But looking out up front, it is Wolf Matuszka that leads. 0.6 of a second between him and Marcus Lawrence. Joe McCauley at the moment sitting in 3rd place. And he's got a bit of a gap right now to the likes of Jaroslav Honzek, but he will be conscious that Jardier is on a mission right now, and he is lapping faster.
But this is exactly it, right? Up at the front, there's you know, a little bit of a battle brewing. Perhaps could see something change up to some pit stops. But on screen that we see at the moment, Tauscher, Chartier, Van der Velde, all in the likes here. Mikowski on the back of that train as well. We look at Martin Lawrence, who's got Valentin Barrier putting some pressure on from behind. And then we've got Alan Garland in that 101 Cayman Porsche, doing exactly the same thing. Everybody here putting on the loud pedal as much as they can. You see Samuel Ratz in his Dayglow KTM Crossbow just in front of Marcus Lawrence here. So it really is Martin Lawrence, sorry. Again, like you mentioned, Ryan, 2 drivers with similar names, similar initials, completely different spellings, and us getting them confused at Zandvoort, perhaps going to happen the same here. Kevin Chartier, though, is the man that has to be defensive. He maybe had a look towards Tauscher, but he has now got the likes of that number 66 AMG putting pressure on to him as they make their way down to Eau Rouge.
Yeah, so Chartier at the moment not quite able to find some pace, although he looks to have had a pretty good exit from Eau Rouge and is starting to catch the Cayman slightly. Won't have the pace towards the end of the Kemmel Straight to be anywhere near in chance of an overtake, but you can see kind of just there in the background Tinker van der Velde lurking. He wants to take that place back, and he will be fully entitled to do so if he can get onto the back of this Aston Martin. It all depends on how Tauscher is out front. Will he start to slow down? He goes a bit wide through Bruxelles. That will allow Chartier to catch slightly. And see, this is the thing now. If Tauscher starts to slow down a bit, Chartier catches up, but maybe he can't get past the Cayman. This is going to bring the likes of Tinker van der Velde back into this battle right now. Jardier close onto the back of Joe McCauley. About 0.3 of a second between those two at the moment.
Indeed, it looks like Jardier making some good progress. A 2:30.948 his last lap coming out. McCauley only managing a 2:31.137. So based on the last lap pace alone, Jardier coming in like a bit of a rocket, and this might add a little bit of insult to injury to what Macaulay was trying to do, perhaps to get a little bit closer up the line. You're going to get a nice onboard view inside the cockpit of the Aston Martin. The number 39 here chasing down the number 19 Ginetta. Good bright colors being picked out by Macaulay. See how they illuminate his car in the darkness, and of course, like you mentioned, Ryan, they do go flat coming out to Blanchamore and then onto the brakes. Will Jardier have a little look? He wants to go around the outside, set him up for the inside line again. Macaulay, will he be able to defend this? He won't, and Jardier slips one right in front of Macaulay's eyes, and Macaulay will try and drag it out down to T1. Going to try and get into the slip early on. Not quite enough room for the Ginetta to slot in. Has to back off, maybe lose a car length in doing so, but Jardier gets himself up onto the provisional podium for the moment. But 49 minutes of racing remaining, pit stop still to come. That's just a very provisional position, but a great overtaking move coming out.
Carbon copy of the movie pulled on Tinko van der Velde very, very early on in the race. Even had the little touch in there to make sure it was exactly the same as the movie had on Tinko van der Velde. But Tinko van der Velde, in fact, has gone into the pit lane. The number 66 has stopped for his mandatory pit stop. And I did actually notice that the Alpines of Mikowski and Barrier have also stopped very early on as well, as has Andreas Simon in the BMW. BMW, in fact, we talked about them at Zandvoort, we talked about them at Paul Ricard. You know, they dominated at Monza. They were very, very fast. They haven't looked the greatest car in the previous two rounds 2 and 3 being, and now we've come here to Spa, and the highest BMW is up in 12th, George. It just seems like the BMW just seems to be one of those cars that if it doesn't have enormous straights to capitalize on its top end, it's just not going to be competitive.
Even if it has amazing straights to capitalize on its top end, it doesn't seem to work out there. It seems to be that the BMW was only good at Monza from what we've seen, and everywhere else that it comes into play, just not really having it. So you would have thought, again, maybe a little bit more competitive with the likes of Kemmel to be able to work with, but I guess not the case here at Spa. Again, Klaasen's holding down in 12th. Then you've got Verst battling it out. Simon in 19th, Stevenson in 22nd, and Gugli in 23rd. So the BMW is not having the greatest of times out here this evening at Spa. 10 degrees on track. I wonder if that's playing into the hands of anyone. Looks like Macaulay losing a little bit of time to the likes of Jardier, who got past him and now has kept that right foot down, continuing to make his way up towards the likes of Marcus Lawrence and Wolf Matuszka. Wolf Matuszka still leads us away in first place in his Audi at number 25, having a look towards Samuel Ratz in his KTM Crossbow. He's got Lawrence, and that will be Martin Lawrence in his Chevy, putting some pressure onto him. And again, talking about cars that are painted the right way for a night race. Anything to say on the Dayglow KTM, Ryan?
Well, I have to say you'll never miss it if it's if it's in front of you. Will you? You can see a great shot there, actually, as the lights shining on the back of that KTM. But actually, Martin Lawrence, very, very close to the back of Samuel Ratz and flashing his lights, saying, "Whoa, that was a bit abrupt," and not too happy about that one. It seems Samuel Ratz also had a bit of a difficult exit from Radion as well, went very, very wide. So the KTM struggling a bit around here. Of course, Samuel Ratz still in 7th place. Very good job. Of course, won at Zandvoort last week in the rain, dominated in that race. But looking like Spa, not such a great track for the KTM at the moment, but the Camaro's not doing great either at the moment. I did say that Sundström started 8th. He was well down the order. He's up to 16th. And Martin Lawrence in 8th, and that's the first of the Camaros, well, the only Camaros in the top 20.
Definitely not seeming like it is working out for the American cars here either, as we get to look at Tauscher and Chartier having themselves a little scrap out on track. Going to jump on board with the Aston Martin following that lovely Porsche Cayman. as they come into a very technical portion of the track. Of course, a lot of curbs here for the GT4 cars to make use of, but also not really in the beneficial line. You see a very wide line coming out from Tauscher, potentially going to open up the opportunity for Charty if he can carry the speed that he wants down through this next sector. Of course, now you're flat on the loud pedal, you're not easing off, and you're continuing to just throw the car, feel the weight through, and try not pick up any of those rubber marbles on the outskirts of the track here. You see Kevin Chartier going a little bit wide. He's going to go into the defensive. Looks like Boardman in the lonely McLaren also going to be fighting out. This is a battle for 9th. Boardman in 10th place in the McLaren. Going to have a little switch up. Going to have a little Jardier line here into the bus stop chicane. Will he have the inside line? Looks like he will have that done. And a lot of drivers electing to hold initially out, and space not really given out there between Garland and the McLaren of Boardman, which means they will come into contact, but that means that the move not going to be completed from the number 69 coming down into the source. Cut back coming in from the McLaren. Now they will drag. Now they will go alongside, and potentially where they wanted to have the move done before is before where they're going down to now. Garland going to do the right thing, has not got the potential to go side by side, but the McLaren will settle back down, and eventually Boardman will get by.
Yeah, good move there from Boardman. Bided his time, didn't he, and made sure that he had a better drive than the Cayman out of the corner, and he makes the move on Garland before he even reaches Eau Rouge. And of course, Harry Conway now in the top 10. He's looking at the back of Garland, and Garland has actually made a mistake. Conway will capitalize on that. He'll put himself ahead of the Cayman as well. So Garland losing 2 places in one sector there. Not ideal for the likes of the 101 Cayman. But now he has Parsons
also
behind him.
Reeling him in there, Ryan.
Yeah, so the first of the BMWs actually. Quade Clarson's. Stephen Wurst a bit further behind him. And just looking down the timing board at the moment, a lot of people going for an early pit stop here, George. I mean, I know you're quite a fan of the early pit stop, especially, you know, if you find yourself in traffic. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But what do you make of the early pit stop in this kind of situation?
I think that in real racing, things are a little bit different. I think that the timing between drivers in the different splits is a little bit closer than what we generally see if drivers are unfamiliar on tracks here. So I don't think that the train formation works the same way that we get to see it in the real motorsport world. So I think that the early pit stops actually are something of the sim nature here, and it depends really where things fit into. If you slot into a position where you're not having pressure from the driver behind, you being sort of towed along by the driver in front, but not catching him to a point where he's putting an impact onto your drive and making you have to slow down and lose lap time, I think then it's okay to stay out and try and extend the stint. But I think because there is such a big difference in speed from first all the way down the order to 28th, for example, I think that as soon as that starts out, you put yourself either in a position where you could jump in, miss out on, you know, the bottom half of the order, potentially slowing you down. We see Harry Conway going very wide out of La Source. He's going to be able to rejoin the track in front of Garland as he makes his way down. But yeah, Ryan, to summarize, I think early pit stops work out because of the differing pace and the fact that staying behind drivers can often lose you a lot of time.
Yeah, it can. We've seen how much time you can gain and lose by being stuck behind someone or having clear air. And I have to say, George, loving the night shots at the moment around here at Spa. I said in the 6 hour of Barcelona race, I'm always a fan of night racing. It's one of the best times to race, in my opinion. And Chartier is actually having a good look here at Tauscher, wanting to get back past that Cayman. The Cayman will go wide, in fact, and Tauscher will make it very, very easy for Chartier to go up the inside and take it before they reach Pouon.
And if Tauscher doesn't ease off on that corner, he's most certainly picked up a warning for driving limits. You can also be given a straight drive through for that portion of the track if you stick in it. You have to be very careful. not to get that. So, you know, it looks like Boardman on the screen also going to be awarded a 15-second penalty. I feel like that potentially has something to do with the exit that he had maybe with Garland, but not entirely sure until we get a full update on that. Ryan, do you have any insight on your side?
I do actually. Jake Boswell's just popped in. Could have brought me a coffee, but unfortunately, all he's got is a stewarding report for me. And,
social distancing says no coffee, right?
all he's got for me is a stewarding report, and it says number 69, contact and taking out 28 being Harry Conway. So, yeah, Boardman obviously deemed to have taken out Harry Conway, not slowed down to give back the position. And the stewards have deemed that a 15-second penalty is necessary for the 69 McLaren.
Matt Samuel is trying to go alongside with Brock McDude. Hasn't worked out for him. This might work out for Sundstrom, though. Sundstrom now going to be able to go alongside. We'll have the inside line down into bus stop. We'll be able to hold off Samuel. We'll be able to also, will he be able to continue the charge on to Brock McDude? But again, this goes to just say, Ryan, when you are watching these races, you look like a driver is potentially about to make a move on someone, and they make a small mistake, touch a bit of curb, have to save the car, and the attack instantly on from the next driver behind them.
Yeah, because of how close all these cars generally are with each other, it's one of those cases where, you know, it takes longer to build up a gap between each car, and, you know, those mistakes, they can be small, but they can have big consequences, especially around here as well, on a fast part of the circuit. We saw with Tauscher as well, you know, just went wide, but it made it so easy for Chartier to go past.
And I mean, that's still a battle that is not stopping off. We still get to watch the likes of Brock McDude and Mikael Sundstrom trying to see if they can heat things up for us in the broadcast. And it looks like Mikael Sundstrom going to be under attack from Matt Samuel behind as well. Samuel going to have the inside down to Bruxelles, and that will force Mikael Sundstrom out wide. Sundstrom then will lose that position that he got back off Samuel, making the mistake earlier on. Might be able to just use the likes of Samuel here to bully Brock McDude a little bit, but Sundstrom not looking to just settle down into Pouan. Going to have a little look on the inside. Samuel giving him the space, running out wide. A beautiful shot from the back of Brock McDude's car to give us a beautiful view of the fight coming down between Samuel and Mikael Sundstrom. Matt Samuel still out ahead in the little duel going down. Camaro versus the Aston Martin. Wide coming out into the technical section of the track. The right-hander, which can lead to running wide once again on the exit, is going to be used by both of these cars. Just look at Mikael Sundstrom. Just look how close he's getting himself. Proximity wise. Out wide goes Samuel, side by side. A little bit of dust going to be kicked up from the car in front of them from Brock McDude. And this is where Samuel lost it out a little bit earlier in the lap. He will take a lot of curb again, but this time around has Sundstrom firmly behind him, Ryan.
And this is one of those occasions, George, where you would say to yourself, what are you doing? You know, you need to get yourself into the pit lane. You need to get yourself clean air. I mean, we're obviously absolutely loving this. And, you know, this is one of those battles that I think will keep going on until one of these guys pits. But, you know, they're costing time to each other. And, you know, I'm actually kind of surprised that Brock McDude hasn't been able to extend the gap on these guys. It is still just over a second between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes. And
well, I mean, I think Brock McDude started quite far down the order himself. So, I mean, he's got himself quite far up there. Might potentially have, you know, benefited off some of the early pit stops coming out from guys using those early pit stop things. Ooh, drive-through penalty coming out for the 256 car, I believe. So track warnings are going to be one of those other mentions of the day. We talked about it a little bit. You get those warnings, and once you've exceeded them, then you suddenly get a drive-through penalty to serve. And oh, what a long pit lane it is to drive through at Spa.
Yeah, equivalent to something along the lines of 80 seconds, I think it is. from start to finish for this this pit lane for a drive-through penalty. It's something along the lines of that. It might be a bit less than that. But yeah, punishing around here. And of course, Jan Matthias, the other KTM, besides Samuel Ratz on the grid, has unfortunately picked up that drive-through, and he'll have to serve that within the next 3 laps. We are currently looking at Alexander Guglia. He's in 21st place at the moment. He's served his mandatory pit stop. And that's Stephenson behind him, in fact, isn't it? Yes, the 108. And the BMW's not having a great time out here. Of course, you can see the likes of Tinko van der Velde, Mikowski, Barrier, Lawrence.
Sorry, Ryan. I also wanted to highlight something that I've been paying attention to here. I've been doing a little bit of quick math. I know that you and I both doubt my math, so I've revised it and asked Google to help me out with it. But I do believe that up at the front, right, Wolf Matuszka having a good race himself, but the likes of Lawrence is really getting caught out by Jaroslav Honzik. Of course, Jardier has been moving it since the start of this race. We've seen him with the lap times, but in terms of the 2 previous laps that I've just seen, almost the lap before this last lap, he was 7/10 up in terms of pace towards Lawrence, and this time around going to be 3/10 up onto the likes of Lawrence. So expect our 3rd place sitter to potentially get into a little battle with 2nd place in a little bit.
Well, that could definitely open up in a very interesting way, of course. And you were saying about catching up for a battle for podium places. In fact, Joe McCauley is not too far off Jaroslav Honzik either, is he? He's just under a second. So the Ginetta hasn't lost pace compared to the Aston Martin. He's sticking with the likes of Jardier. Obviously, we're looking at Brock McDood, and you can see Matt Samuel and Mikael Sundstrom right behind him. You can also see Jan Matthias in the background, and he'll be a lap down to these guys right now after serving that drive-through penalty, and that must be so hard for him to bear, that he's finished his mandatory pit stop, but he's a lap down to a significant portion of the field. In fact, it's half the field he's a lap down to at the moment. Of course, he will unlap himself to quite a few of those guys when they come in for their mandatory pit stops, but I think for Jan Matthias, it's going to be a race to forget. But one of the things I was going to mention, look at the names that have made their mandatory pit stops at the moment. Van der Velde, Mikowski, Barrier, Lawrence. These are guys that were in the top 10, remember. And, of course, they've pitted early. They should have clean air. And it's going to be very interesting to see how it all develops towards the end of the race when other people start pitting. I have been keeping an eye on a battle between Harry Conway and Alan Garland. In fact, the Cayman of Garland catching Conway in the Triple R Mercedes. And remember, it was Harry Conway that did get past Garland when he made a mistake up towards Le Com. But the Cayman has not put out the white flag just yet, despite the livery that's on that car. And he is pushing to get back up to the back of Conway at the moment. Of course, Boardman has that 15-second penalty just a few seconds in front. So these guys are, you know, theoretically running a position higher than they actually are. And we actually see Garland diving off into the pit lane. He's going to serve his mandatory stop. He feels he's quicker than Conway, but he can't get past him. And he's going to try and go for the undercut.
Not a bad place for him to go in. He sees that he has Quade Claessens in that battle as well. So he's hoping that Claessens will then catch up to Conway and maybe slow out the progress that they make on track. He can make his stop, come out into some clean air and really start to put the pedal down. Samuel still trying to get past Brock McDood here as the number 46 AMG is going to just hold off the Aston Martin once again, making their way down towards Eau Rouge and then get to the top of Radio. Both cars looking quite stable. Samuel looking like he wanted to take a little bit of extra curbing, but gets that Aston Martin back on track. Of course, the top exit there before the Kemmel Straight, incredibly important to make sure you get the drive down the line here. Samuel maybe looking around the outside, but not going to be close enough to do so. An easy defense going to be withheld by Brock McDood. Going to keep Matt Samuel at bay. We saw Samuel having a great qualifying, like you mentioned, Ryan, out at Zandvoort, but the race not going the same way there. This time round, Samuel not having a bad race in 13th place at the moment, with the potential to make some places up if he can get past some of the drivers on track that seem to be holding down his pace. He definitely does have some quicker sectors than the cars that he's approached, but you know, it's one thing catching up to a car, it's another thing passing them.
Yeah, very much so. And in fact, I'm currently looking down the list of drivers in the championship, George. Matt Samuel at the moment sits 10th in the championship, 83 points. He has 1 pole position, no wins, no podiums right now, no fastest laps either. And of course, we did see at Zandvoort how he kind of just fell back through the grid. So of course, 13th place is not really ideal for him. He'd be looking to finish higher than this for sure. And as we hit the halfway mark, in fact, it's just important to remind, Mikael Sundström has gone in to serve his pit stop. So he's going to be hoping that Brock McDude is going to hold up Matt Samuel for as long as possible. And that's kind of looking how it is at the moment. Brock McDude fancies that he can race Samuel and he can stay ahead of him.
Well, he has no obligation to not race him. Both cars are on the same strategy. Both of them have the choice to go into the pits, and Brock McDude is doing exactly that, holding Samuel up, and that's going to benefit anybody who's dived into the pits before this. Chris Heineke, that number 96 Porsche, also going to be trying to get up closer to the back of the battle in front of him, knowing that's potentially a slower car on track in terms of just absolute raw pace. You do have to go defensive. The defensive line is slower. It's just facts of how the racing works, and using the cars all around you on track to your advantage is part of being a smart racing driver. So down the Kemmel Straight, not a great exit coming out from Brock McDude. He might actually be under severe attack. I don't think Samuel had a great exit either. Might be able to benefit McDude here, may be able to hold him off once again. It looks like he does. So both cars getting a terrible exit out.
Yeah, I was going to say, George, I didn't mean to interrupt you just there, but Brock McDude, when he went off at the top of Radion, he cut the corner. He's picked up a drive-through penalty for track limits. And that has effectively killed off this battle at the moment, because Brock McDude knows that no matter how well he defends against the likes of Matt Samuel, he's just slowing both their races down.
But Ryan, I heard that if you put that car into Rice, that the drive-through penalties will come and take it away from you. Is that not the case?
Well, I mean, up to you to interpret
Ryan,
that.
The actual answer is no. He has to drive into the pits and serve it himself. But there will be no drive-through pixies to save him this time round. Guglia and I believe Stevenson and Tauscher now going to be getting into a little battle. It will be BMWs on the pounce towards the likes of the Cayman of Tauscher, and Stevenson and Guglia are going to rub sides. The tree's going to play parental guidance for us in that view. We're going to have to rely on a replay to see what happened here. Side by side coming into the right-hander. A little bit of the rear quarter panel touched out. Stevenson does continue to drive out, spins out Alexander Guglia, and the number 18 going to be very upset, flashing his lights out there as he rejoins the circuit.
Yeah, so Guglia, unfortunately, on the wrong end of that. Of course, stewards will investigate any incidents going on around the circuit. And in fact, I have to say, George, I'm very, very impressed today. We've had one penalty been dished out for contact and such. It's been a very, very clean race so far, and of course that incident will be investigated, and we'll await the steward's verdict on that. But so far, I was kind of concerned coming into Spa with how the start of the race would play out, but considering the fact that everyone was extremely clean through the first few laps, George, I think I think these guys did take that reserved approach and were a bit more cautious on that opening lap. As we can actually see on the timing board now, likes of Matt Samuel have come into the pit lane.
I think every driver did apply exactly that. Come in clean, try and get the best possible start, not only for themselves, but the other drivers, knowing that potential chaos has happened here at Spa before. We had the restart. Nobody wanted to be, held up any longer than they had to be. It was going to be a good race from the get-go, and I'm just glad that the drivers here let us have just that. So we've seen a couple of penalties coming out in terms of track limits. That's something that you do, you expect it to come out here. It looks like Mikowski going to have a nice little run down the inside here of Valentin Barrier. Down the inside, indeed, the number 11 will lose out before the end of the Kemmel Straight. So that was for position, and of course both drivers here have served that mandatory pit stop. 25 minutes of the race remain, and I don't know quite how these pit stops are going to pay out. We know that Mikowski pulled off a massive undercut at Zandvoort in the rain, so wondering if he's trying to do something similar here. So currently in 15th place, didn't have the best of qualifyings. Will be interesting to see where he comes out. He wants to avoid all the battles that he can with drivers out on track, but you can't always do that. You can't predict everything, Ryan.
No, you can't, and going to be difficult now for the likes of Mikowski to get back in front of Barrier. It's interesting to see Barrier, of course, had a very, very good race at Zandvoort, picked up a penalty towards the end of the race, and had a bit of difficulty on the final lap as well. But he has been doing fairly well so far this season, and he'll be looking to finish in front of the championship leader. Brock Madou just come into the pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty. No idea as to when he'll serve his mandatory pit stop yet. But I have to say, I'm looking at the moment at Samuel Ratz, and the reason I'm looking at Samuel Ratz is because Boardman behind him is just about 3/10 behind. Of course, has a 15-second penalty, but right now, Boardman's got to ignore that 15-second penalty, and he's got to drive that car as fast as he can. And of course, he has found a KTM in the way.
I mean, if we just look at their last laps, it should be Samuel Ratz being just 2/10 quicker than Boardman. Boardman potentially pulling some rabbits out of hats. If you go down to their base lap times here in circuits, it's 200ths that separate them, with Boardman being the quicker of the cars on circuit. So potentially Boardman on lap times alone could catch up to the likes of Ratz, but with such small deficits between them, that 15-second penalty, if Ratz feels like that pressure's getting too much from the McLaren, feels like he's making mistakes, it would be in his best interest to let the McLaren drive on up the road and not get too much involved. He's got 15 seconds to play with there regardless. As we switch back over to Brock McDood down in 18th place, did he go into the pits to serve that drive-through penalty?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so
that's why he's dropped down the order.
Yeah, dropped down all the way to 18th place, and still that little number 1 next to his name in orange, that's going to haunt him. He still has to serve his mandatory stop. So he's right slam bang in the middle of the field who's completed mandatory stops, and that's not where you want to be without having served it yet.
No, it isn't, but somewhere that you do want to be is exactly where Jaroslav Honzik is right now, and that's closing in on the likes of Marcus Lawrence, 0.8 of a second between second and third at the moment. Joe McCauley about 1.5 seconds behind them. So Giardia, like you said, George, reeling in that Mercedes slowly but surely. And I only think it will be another lap or two before Giardia is right on the back of the Mercedes. Of course, Wolf Matuszka leads out in front, 6.6 seconds clear of the other two podium sitters. But Wolf Matuszka looking to be the first repeat winner of the season so far. And one of the things I do think back to, George, is how different this race could have been if that Ginetta of Joe McCauley would have been on pole.
Throwing some feels out into the wind there and letting them slap back into us as we breeze on past the situation there. Ryan, yeah, it's such a difficult one to really call because, it comes down to flat out pace for an hour at the end of the day, not just what you can manage to get out on track for the first time. Of course, no one wants to see an incident where we had to have a restart like we did. But everybody was dealt the same situation. So it wasn't like half the grid had their times in and then the other half had to go and set them. Everybody's times were taken away. Everyone had to go out. Everyone was given the same fair bit of pie to, handle. And, it is where it is now. Macaulay is having a great race. He's sitting in fourth. He is making progress towards the likes of Hanzik. Hanzik is definitely reeling in Lawrence. So if that fight heats up between them, Hanzik and Lawrence is going to have to defend. That's going to allow Macaulay to get even closer in. And just look how close Jardy has got himself to the likes of Marcus Lawrence here. The PC, DC, AMG going to go onto the brakes. And Ryan, will we see it again? It will be into the pits for Marcus Lawrence. He wants to have a little bit of a pit choice before having to battle with the likes of Johnny. I think it's a good choice for him to do. He saw him catching, and before it became somewhere where he was then losing his own time, Lawrence has chosen to go into the pits. So Jardier will take over second place. He will keep it nice and tight and clean. Joe Macaulay will resume in third place. Mikowski looks like he has gotten past the likes of Barrier. I believe at the top of the Kemmel Straight earlier on, I called the move incorrect as I got them completely confused. The TX3 colors and the team that Barrier drives for, very similar to the colors that are running on this Carbon Esports car from Christoph Mikowski. So seeing both Alpines on track at the same time, I actually thought the move was coming out from Mikowski earlier on, but it was Barrier on Mikowski, and then Mikowski will get the position back off of Barrier. So now I've done my housekeeping. I feel a little bit cleaner about myself in calling the wrong drivers the wrong name. Ryan, will you have me back again next week, maybe?
I'll always have you back, George. And as we can actually see, Mikowski and Barrier, this battle not quite over yet between the two Alpines, and I expect for the next 18 and a half minutes of the race, it's going to continue as such. In fact, the likes of Martin Lawrence has caught up to the back of these two. He said, well, look, if you guys are going to have a go at it, I want in as well. Just a quick note on the Marcus Lawrence coming into the pit lane. I think it was a very good decision, like you said, George. And it did actually work out for him a bit as well, because Jardier got stuck behind a BMW that was a blue flagged car, for a short period of time. So that would have slowed Jardier's progress down. Of course, he has cleared that back marker now, and he is progressing on his way. But Marcus Lawrence will be happy to know that, managed to dive into the pit lane, didn't waste too much time, and it still held up Jardier towards the end. We're currently looking at Boardman. He's got past the likes of Samuel Ratz, but he will have to clear 15 seconds from the KTM if he plans to keep that position.
I feel like this is an okay place for Ratz to be in. He can just follow Boardman around, and if Boardman is the slower car, Ratz wouldn't have really felt like the need to let him get by or really had the fight to it. So if Boardman is going to be along dragging Ratz away with him, then Ratz is fine with that. Maybe get himself a little bit closer to the 819 of Chartier up the order. And Samuel Ratz, a driver that will pounce at any opportunity that's there. He stalks his prey, and he'll just sit at bay, lap after lap. He'll sit behind someone, find where their weak spots are, and then really nail them where it hurts. So for now, I think Boardman with the 15-second penalty, Ratz has done the right thing. He wants to be the car in control. He can control that gap towards Boardman in this point. He doesn't have to worry about, potentially a driver who's angsty trying to get himself up the order, running into his rear end. He can then just lay onto the pedal, keep him within that 15-second sort of gap. But I say that as Boardman has a much better exit out to the top of the Kemmel Straight, and we see him putting quite a few car lengths towards the likes of Ratz. But 15 seconds is a long time, Ryan. 15 seconds it feels like eternity.
Yeah, 15 seconds is the kind of gap you want to build up over an entire stint, not a quarter of an hour or just over a quarter of an hour. So, you know, that is going to hurt Boardman for sure. Looking at Guglia at the moment, he's got Sundstrom right behind him. Of course, Sundstrom been doing the best job he can to recover a very poor start to his race. He was down right near the back of the grid after qualifying. He qualified 8th and didn't have a great start to the race. Maybe had an off. And, you know, he's just trying to salvage whatever he can at the moment. Stephenson's got a drive-through penalty for track limits. He's serving that right now. In fact, you might be able to see him in the pit lane as these guys go past. There you go. You can just see the BMW there, and they'll gain a position from that. I am keeping an eye on the battle between Barrier and Lawrence, however. Barrier started to drop back a bit from the likes of Makowski, and Lawrence is actually going to have the inside line coming into Lecom. The Camaro and the Alpine will go side by side. The Alpine will have the better drive through the corner and will maintain the position. And now they'll run down towards Bruxelles, but Martin Lawrence is looking interested here on the Alpine of Valentin Barrier.
Just top shelf driving coming out from both drivers, really. I mean, to give each other that kind of room after Kemmel to slow the car down, make use of the curb, go 2 cars wide, and still give each other room for the exits. That's just, you know, that for me is what you want to see out in the pro splits. It's not always just about pro pace on track. It's also about that racecraft ability, and I think that was demonstrated quite nicely there. And Barrier, in a very fair way, holds Lawrence at bay, but both still giving each other that space on track really means that they can push, and they'll know into the next opportunity if that gap is there and they can go side by side. That driver's giving him that room to do so. That means that we can get some incredible racing to broadcast, and we see that Alpine number 72 doing a good job to keep a couple of car lengths to the 171 Camaro in the background. Both cars running a little bit wide before getting onto the fast section towards the end of the lap. On board with Martin Lawrence here as he does chase down the Alpine of Barrier. A lot of speed coming down from the Camaro on the inside line, coming into Blanchimore, but gonna have to lift a little bit. You see the nippy agility side of the Alpine really shine as it gets chucked in there.
Super commitment from Barrier there to make sure that he kept the car planted and on the track, and did very well to do so. And this is the thing with Martin Lawrence now. He's going to be frustrated.
Matushka has gone into the pits, just to let you know, Ryan. I wanted to update us and the viewers. So he will come out in 8th place at the moment, ahead of Lawrence, who was the first of the other pit drivers so far. So Jardier will take over the lead of the race temporarily. And of course, we'll be up to Macaulay to see what he can do. Very interested to see how Jardier does here, having a bit of free air himself. Like you mentioned, perhaps getting caught up by some back markers, not going to benefit his position coming out. But if he can make up that time that he lost there, then, you know, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, so Wolf Matushka, mandatory pit stop done, out of the way. I've just seen Martin Lawrence make a mistake, and that's lost him some time to Valentin Barrier, so the Camaro is going to have to put in the work and close right up to the back. Something I was just thinking about Marcus Lawrence, actually, who is obviously theoretically sitting in 2nd or 3rd place, not entirely sure, because Jardier hasn't come into the pit lane yet. We saw Marcus Lawrence doing very well at Zandvoort, and he was unfortunately robbed of a podium position through server disconnection, wasn't it? I think his internet had a bit of a failure on him.
You're right. You are right. Something strange happened there. Macaulay goes into the pits off camera there, so our 2nd place car temporarily will go in and serve his pit stop. Of course, things will be changed up by the likes of Chartier, Boardman, and Rats, who are still yet to go into the pits.
Don't mean to interrupt you, George, but Barrier and Lawrence are side by side, and actually Barrier will maintain the position coming through campus. I was convinced Lawrence had the move done, but like you said before, George, the agility of this little Alpine. It can dart through corners incredibly well, and here you can see Martin Lawrence as well getting held up. He's gone wide, and he's going to have to back off, and that allows the Alpine to regain its composure. Barrier doing very, very well here. And this just seems... Oh, actually, is he a bit deep there? The Alpine going a bit deep, but not too deep, that it will bring Lawrence into play. But this is kind of just a bit of an example I'm seeing here of, the Camaro is not the fastest car in a straight line, but it definitely seems to have the top end over the Alpine. But the Alpine just seems to be so confident in the corners.
It takes three a great racing team, and of course they have a whole bunch of talented drivers. Valentin Barrier here showing why he is one of them. The way that he is throwing this car around with confidence is most certainly that of a top level driver, and he's got so much pressure coming out from that Camaro up through the top of Radio now, side by side. I think Lawrence will have the drag to hold this. Barrier gonna hold the inside line that he has. A little bit of squeezing coming out, and that's not going to be the squeeze, that's going to be the tuck back coming down. Barry going to have to settle behind the likes of Lawrence now. See if he can get a little bit of a cutback a little bit later on in the lap, but you do see him losing the rear end of the Alpine. It drifts out as he then struggles to hang on to it. So nice move coming out there from Martin Lawrence, and Valentin Barrier left sort of hanging like the washing, trying to make his way back up the order. Only 9 minutes and 41 seconds of racing remaining for him to improve his position.
Yeah, you can also see that Mikowski is well up the road at the moment, 3 seconds clear of these two.
Jardia is in the pits, so Jardia is in the pits. Let me just confirm. Jardia has gone into the pits.
So this is going to be interesting now. Where will Jardia come out? Will he be ahead of Marcus Lawrence, or will he be behind him? This is going to be absolutely crucial. I'm seeing him at the moment. He's going
Lawrence
around.
Lawrence is coming through Blanchemont now, and I see Jardia leaving his pit box already.
Jardia's making his way down the second half of the pit lane.
Lawrence is now coming into the bus stop.
Oh, I think Marcus Lawrence has stayed ahead here, George, because I think Joseph Honzik, he does have quite a bit left of the pit lane to navigate. Then he's got the awkward pit exit that you have here. Marcus Lawrence is braking into turn 1 right now. Joseph Honzik still has about 100 meters to go. And as
I think Lawrence is gonna have it at the top of Kemmel regardless. I mean, he's coming all the way down the start-finish straight, or where we start the race, not really where we finish the race, down through Eau Rouge, up through the top of Radio, and there we see Jardia leaving the pit box. Will Lawrence have the speed required down Kemmel? Slow exit coming out from Jardia, but the hunt is now on. This is for what should be second place. Lawrence does have the speed down towards Kemmel, will not be able to defend, does Jardia. Will just settle back in and try and make the cutback, but Marcus Lawrence with a big mistake. Jardia leaps forward. He may have this. Marcus Lawrence with a big mistake at the top, and this has allowed Jardia back into this, Ryan.
Well, what looked like a lost position, and Jardia would have to fight for hard. He has now been given through Marcus Lawrence going just too deep, and that's one of the risks that you run being in the slipstream of another car carrying so much pace, is that you get your braking point wrong, you go a bit too deep, and of course you give the position back. And that's exactly what's happened here. So all of the hard work that Marcus Lawrence had done going into the pits early, making sure he had clean air, is now all been undone. He's behind Jardia regardless. And Joe McCauley's well off of these guys as well, 4.3 seconds behind. He's not realistically going to be a threat to them for the podium positions. But I tell you what, it is a fight on here for second and third. Marcus Lawrence needs to get his head back in the game.
He does indeed. He does know that he has some pace. He might not think that he has the pace to match that of Jardia. He maybe will be thinking now, I was losing out in the previous laps. That's why I went in for that pit stop. I needed to keep ahead. But if those thoughts are going through his mind, he's losing tenths at every apex. So he needs to bury them right now, focus on what needs to be done. And that's getting this PCDC number 12 onto the front of the order. Drive-through penalty to the number 18. That will be Googlia, who is in 18th place as well. So that's going to shuffle the order down a little bit. Valentine Barrier also with a drive-through penalty, the number 72, who we saw battling out with Lawrence and Mikowski for so long. And number in 12th place at the moment, going to have to go and serve a drive-through penalty with 6 minutes to go. Absolutely gutting stuff.
Yeah, this is not the time you want to pick up a drive-through penalty. I mean, you don't want to pick a drive-through penalty at all throughout the race, but the worst time to pick it up is, you know, going into the last 10 minutes or, well, arguably coming towards the last 5 minutes of the race now. Chartier is made his mandatory pit stop. He'll be coming out of the pit lane momentarily. Samuel Ratz leads provisionally, followed by Harry Conway and Stephen Vuss. They're the only 3 drivers left. Still have to serve their mandatory pit stop, and of course once they do they will drop out of the top 3. But just looking here, Wolf Matuszka has been untouchable so far this race. He's pulled a gap, he's maintained it 6.5 seconds at the moment over the likes of Jardier, and looking like a very similar performance to what we saw out at Paul Ricard, George.
Indeed, it looks that way. Matuszka having a clinical race so far. We're going to have a look at a race between 2 drivers on track. And of course, that will be Hanzik and Lawrence. We've seen this heating up. We saw the pit stop strategy come out. We saw Lawrence losing it towards the top of Kemo, allowing Chardier back through. This number 39, Aston Martin, is on the charge. And Lawrence does seem to be losing out minute by minute as the clock ticks away. He needs to be closer to the back of Hanzik if he has any chance of bettering his position. Of course, these guys holding 4th, 5th, etc. are just out of place. It would be a provisional, or it would be a 3rd place available potentially, or 2nd place to Hanzik, and Lawrence being able to hold down 3rd. So Macaulay potentially 3.6 seconds down the road from the likes of Lawrence. That's also not going to be, that's 3.7 seconds to Hanzik. So potentially a bit of a change coming out. We're going to look at Andy Boardman, the McLaren, with a penalty. He's got Garland putting some pressure on right at the end.
Yeah, Garland knows he doesn't have to get past the McLaren either. He just has to stay within 15 seconds. And, well, being about 0.2 seconds off the back of the McLaren, I think he's doing that job fairly well at the moment. And realistically, even if he does get past Boardman, he's not going to make up enough time to catch up to Tauscher in 12th. So I think for Garland at the moment, just a case of stick with the McLaren as much as you can. Don't take any risks, silly maneuvers that could cost you come late in the race. And Boardman will be just thinking to himself, oh, make a mistake, go away. You know, anything to just be further behind me to mitigate the penalty that I've got carrying with me. I mean, as it stands, he'll drop 2 places on the line. Mikael Sundstrom a bit too far back, about 22 seconds back from Boardman. So not really enough time for Mikael Sundstrom to make that back up, unless Boardman does make a mistake, which, you know, into the last 3 minutes here, we do see mistakes fairly late on from a couple of people in these races. Harry Conway served his mandatory pit stop. He's coming back out. And Samuel Ratz, Stephen Vuss still yet to pit. But of course, they will be pitting fairly soon. And, well,
Down in 23rd and 24th, Heineke and Borodai are having a fight for position. They're dragging it out towards what looks like Blanchimont will be Borodai to make a little move for position. So we'll get himself 23rd place. We do switch over to the action there, I see, as the BMW swiftly makes quick work of the Ghost Works number 96. Heineke was doing a good job to defend off on Borodai, but unfortunately it looked like for once the BMW's top end working out towards the end of Blanchimont there.
Yeah, the BMW's not had an easy time out here. Stephen Vuss, the highest at the moment, but of course he does have a pit stop to serve.
Ratz
Not
goes
entirely
in for his pit stop, Ryan, as well.
Oh, yes, he does. Samuel Ratz into the pit lane. So, as we actually get a notification of the final lap of the race. Stephen Vust has come into the pit lane as well. So these guys saving it until the final lap of the race. Wolf Matuszka, who is now going to be the theoretical leader, just coming out of the bus stop chicane to start his final lap of the race. He will be the race leader for the final lap. And just one of the things I was going to mention, George, the BMWs, well, Stephen Vust, it remains to be seen where he comes out exactly. But looking down the order, the highest BMW I can see that's done their mandatory pit stop that is actually out on track is 20th with Andreas Simon. And, well, I said it in the previous round, a car that looks so dominant at the first round has just, you know, it's opened up to look more like a liability as the season's gone on.
Seemed to be that car at Monza that everybody was kicking themselves about not picking for the season, but it certainly is not played out that way at all. So our leader Matuszka out on his final lap. We follow along with Lawrence temporarily. He's obviously holding down third place. He's got Jardier just in front of him. Honzik has done a great job to just hold down this race, do the right things at the right time, and put his car into the position that it needed to be. Lawrence was losing time to Honzik lap after lap. He tried to make it work with his pit stop strategy. It almost did indeed as well, and it will remain a fight to the finish. Another one to the finish will be Kopf and Barrier. Barrier looking like he's got that inside line down into bus stop. These two drivers will still be out to do another lap today, I believe. They're not going to finish No, they're not. So they're still going to be dragging it out to the line. It will be an outside line coming out from Kopf. Will he be able to get that undercut? We've seen it work before onto the likes of Barrier. Very wide from Barrier coming down. The little Alpine will make its way towards Eau Rouge for the final time today. Wolf Matuszka, the story of the day, though, leading the race and potentially also going to take the victory. I don't want to add any sort of commentator's curse to the final lap out here, but he will be making his way down to Blanchimont for the final time. Jardier seems to have a good couple of car lengths to the likes of Lawrence. A second place, hopefully in the bag for the number 39, and the number 12 AMG then hoping to get third. And if any mistakes are made, they might be made in the final bit. But it will be Wolf Matuszka up at the front to go through the bus stop chicane for the final time. Flashes his lights and takes the victory for the Muka Motorsport number 25 Audi. And it will be Jardier to cross the line in his Aston Martin to take home second. Marcus Lawrence to take home third place in an incredible battle between the top three.
Joe McCauley will finish fourth in the Ginetta. He'll feel like that's a job well done. Kevin Chartier will come home to round out the top five. Further down the order, Tinko van der Velde, Monza's winner, will finish in sixth place. He'll see that as a job well done. The championship leader in seventh, with Martin Lawrence just behind him in eighth. Michael Tauscher will finish ninth, and Samuel Ratz in the KTM, the winner from Zandvoort, will round out the top 10. To look further down the order, Boardman has crossed the line, and that 15-second penalty has been applied. It means that Garland, Conway, Stephen Vust all jump ahead of him in the finishing order. Mikael Sundstrom will come home for 15th place. A very good recovery from that car from an early accident. Matt Samuel, well, disappointing race for him. No top 10. He'll be dropping places in the championship. Only 16th for him. Billy Octane in 17th. A decent result for him. Valentin Barrier will feel that he could have had a much better race today. Only 18th for him. That drive-through penalty costing him big time towards the end. Mattis Kopp will finish 19th. And then Andreas Simon, the second of the BMWs, in 20th. Followed by Dustin Vust, Alexander Borodai, Chris Heineke, Quaid Claessens, Brock McDood, Alexander Guglia, William Stephenson, and Jan Matthias will round out the field.
Cannot help but notice those BMWs down towards the bottom of the order as the drivers here round out their race in the GT4s. It's been a great bit of racing, Ryan, from me.
I was just going to say, George, did you catch that little piece of action here? We're actually going to get a replay, courtesy of Nick Setnick behind the cameras. This was Brock McDood and Guglia, I believe it was.
For position.
And yeah, it is for position, actually, coming into the final sector. They're coming towards the bus stop chicane, and there is a bit of an incident here. Guglia touches the Mercedes, pings him off into the wall. The Mercedes comes back on track and rather removes the BMW from the scene. And I guess all's well that ends well there. No one gained or lost anything, really, but an interesting end to the race for what was 24th and 25th position.
A part of me almost thought that those were drivers on their outlap, the way that they conducted themselves on track. So an interesting collision that didn't look like it belonged in the pro split, but looked like also perhaps both drivers just remaining as passengers.
Yeah, so that is going to be it for today, guys. Wolf Matushka will be the winner. He'll be the first repeat winner of the GT4 Championship, and of course, he'll consider that a job well done today. And of course, credit to Jardier and Marcus Lawrence for finishing in the podium places. Joe McCauley as well, 4th place in the Ginetta. He'll feel like that is a job well done for him indeed. So, if you're thinking to yourself, well, I did rather enjoy the action here tonight, well, we do have some more stuff coming up very, very soon. In fact, Thursday is going to be the next race. That's going to be the multi-class GT series. We're at Silverstone for our multi-class race, GT3s and GT4. For multi-class racing and for the likes of endurance racing. But of course, it will only be a 75-minute race on Thursday. Then on Friday, well, it's the one everyone's been waiting for. The Intercontinental GT Sprint Championship returns right here on RCI TV. Get my words mixed up a bit there. And we're at a very, very special track for the 4th round of the championship. It's Bathurst, and it's going to be the pros right here on RCI TV. The AMs will be on RCI Racing on Twitch, and that will be incredibly fun to watch. We have the British GT3 going on this weekend. That should be on Sunday. So British GT3 cars at Brands Hatch is going to be incredibly exciting to see. Aston Martins, Bentleys, the Jag is up for grabs as well, apparently, I've heard. Don't know who will be taking that. Maybe someone is crazy enough to do so. And of course, we will be back with the Monday Championship next week. And as I actually have a little look down the calendar here, it's actually going to be Misano for the 5th round of the championship. We have 6 rounds for the GT4 Championship, so we're coming into the ending part of the season. But next week we'll be at Misano, and the season will finish off at Silverstone in 2 weeks' time. So loads and loads of RCI streams to watch throughout the next week. And of course, we should have some news on our 3-hour race that we've got coming up fairly soon, and the 12-hour of Bathurst that we're going to be running in October. So, thank you to Nick Setnick for running the cameras here tonight at RCI. He's done an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you to all the stewards for their work here tonight. I don't think they were too busy, but of course they do an amazing job to just show up and do stewarding for an hour. I definitely couldn't do it. And I'm pretty sure George feels the same way in that regard. And actually, big thank you as well to George Smith for joining me in the box. It's always a pleasure to have him alongside me. And thank you, everyone. Despite the delays that we had today, we did get the race underway, and it was very, very enjoyable. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Like and subscribe if you feel that you enjoyed the stream enough. And we will be back on Thursday for the Multiclass GT Series. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening.